welcome to Monday Musing 32. I honestly think I'm losing track of the numbers. It could be 32, it could be 33. But welcome. Sorry about the short break last week. I was terribly poorly. I've recovered. So thank you everyone for the well wishes. But I definitely needed a week off. It was a pretty bad bout of food poisoning. So let's not go into the details. Thank you everyone for joining me tonight. David McGovern, we'll get round to your question. That's definitely on the topic for tonight. So what is the topic tonight? Well, it's about getting your armies painted. We've just launched WGO Chronicles 2018. Sam launched that at the weekend. It's a great motivation, I think, for getting armies painted. But I wanted to kind of break down a little bit more, not just the motivation, but techniques, little mental tricks or little painting techniques or hobby techniques we can use to kind of help get those armies painted. And what I noticed when I was looking at the forum for WGO Chronicles, there's kind of a pattern forming. So I kind of figure maybe that's some insight into successful army painting. Joining us on the chat, we've got hundreds of people. Well, okay, slight exaggeration. We've got literally tens of people on the chat at the moment, and amongst those are people like Ulster Nation, famous for painting armies in less than 4 minutes. So I'm sure we're going to have some great insight from everyone on the chat as well, so I'll be looking at the chat. So first and foremost, big welcome everyone. Let's do a quick catch up on the chat and see where we're at before we dive into the nitty gritty of all of this. Ralph is in there. Ralph, thank you for joining us. Joe as well, Joe Scoville, got there nice and early. Dunny Woods is in, Jim Wilson's in, Thordalim as well. Hey Thordalim, how you doing, man? Ulster Nation I mentioned. Coleman is in there as well. Hey Coleman, great to meet you and your little lad as well at ChillCon. That was just awesome. It was great fun, and I hope he's very happy with his skellybogs that he got. That was brilliant. Slippy Tiger, Jim Wilson in there saying hello. Al Kirkham, Chaos Lord Patter is in there as well, all the way from Chicago. So hello Chicago, thank you for joining us. Derpimus Maximus is in as well. Al Kirkham making an appearance. Hey Al, how you doing, mate? Orc Boys in there, good to see you. Who else have we got? Big Rich. Oh, Big Rich, and he's off work, so that's awesome. It's great, you can join us. Roa is in there as well. And All Is Dust is saying hey all. So wow, that's actually, you know what? We may be into the triples of the tens. Funbug number 1 is in there saying hello. Slippy Tiger, I think I may have mentioned. David McGovern, as I said, he's asked a good question. Trying to paint several armies right now without an airbrush. So the title of this vid really intrigued me. What advice can you give me to paint my armies faster? Well, we'll talk a bit about that. There's definitely a balance between what you would consider as pigment paints and washes and glazes, and certainly when I was working on my Fire Slayers, I was definitely up against it for the tournament and relied quite heavily on washes and glazes and using multiple layers and multiple colors of those, and it's amazing how much that can introduce. But we'll come back to that. That achieving much more than you'd expect when you don't consider a wash as just something that provides shade, but also into the point where it's providing tone. So Dunny Woods, on the final stretch of my Seraphim now, a bit of shading and highlighting to do on my 5 knights, and that's it. The Seraphim knights, they're awesome. We'll add my forum. I'm assuming that's the I can't remember what they're actually called, the unit, but they're the dudes on the cold ones, aren't they? Which are pretty cool. Big Meg Danskull. Yeah, you know what? I didn't really complain. I didn't have a hashtag. Sam made that up on his chat. Okay, it's not true. I did complain. So Beard Team Assemble. Thank you for the hashtag. Coleman saying he's alive. I am indeed alive, Coleman. It's been a tough week. It really has. And I won't go into the detail because it was bordering on terrible. Derpimus Maximus, couldn't have you streaming on the internet you were streaming on the Porcelain Throne while streaming on the Porcelain Throne. No, honestly, streaming and no, let's not go there. The background noise would have been distracting. It would indeed. Hi Phil, hope all is well, says Al Kilcombe. Peter Higgins is joining us. Hey up peeps. Kablam's saying hey, or hey Kablams, how you doing? Stunning work as ever. I'm keeping all abreast of what you're up to. And all is dusk. Do you make your own glaze or use a bit of both? And it also we'll talk a little bit about that as well. One thing I used in desperation, I needed a really flowing glaze for something. And you can use medium and you can use flow aid, but strangely enough in this instance I actually used a thin down gloss varnish, because the gloss varnish by its very merit flows quite well generally. I'm talking about an airbrush gloss varnish, so it wasn't the Vallejo, I think it was the Minotaur gloss, and I actually used that as a flow aid, knowing that I was going to put a matte varnish back over the top. So yes, a bit of both, basically, bit of both. But I have to say, I've spent some time over the last few weeks with the Fire Slayers using the Army Painter tones and washes, and pretty impressed with them, I have to say. Okay, what else have we got? Sir Miggleton is in there. Hello guys, hello. And Johnny Rockstar saying hello. Hey Johnny Rockstar, it's good for you to join us. And Scott as well. Hello Phil, finally caught the show, been busy of late. Well Scott, you are welcome as always. Just had to paint 83 washes. This is all in dust, so washers were my best friend. Absolutely. Oh, for a grand tournament, nice. Okay, right. Let's that's me up to speed on the chat, but let's go through, I think, the first part. And what are we going to do tonight? I think we're going to spend about half an hour just chatting through some of the things. I've asked the team today the kind of things that motivate them, that get their armies painted. So I have asked around and I've collated those thoughts together into, I think, probably about 5 things that that seem to make sense, if I remember rightly. So I've grouped them together into about 5 main headings, and I'm just seeing if I can actually find those. I can indeed, so that's good. Let's go back to that. We'll go through those 5 headings, and we'll talk a little bit about what the team had to say and what they found important. Acharya is in there. Hey Acharya, or shall I say Amit? We should call you Amit, really. I know that's your hang on YouTube, but that's cool, man. So thank you very much for doing your job on the don't forget to like and subscribe to Wargamer Online YouTube channel. Blah, 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 blah. Hit the notifications and the bells and all those kind of things that people say, so you can find out when we're doing more. Right. Okay, let's have a little think about some of these themes. So what was coming up, really? Yeah, well, the first one, definitely, that rang out from the team was find your motivation. And what I mean by that, there's a few things that were definitely thematic amongst the feedback. The motivation could be a deadline. It can be an online social event. So, for instance, like the WGO Chronicles. It could be an online competition. It could be the painting competitions for the Warhammer community. So any of those things, find that motivation. I think for your army, though, there are very few things out there that are kind of for the entire army. Tournaments are particularly useful, and certainly for our team, Wargamer Online, there was a lot of hobby nights thrown into getting their armies ready for a tournament, because that's a real showstopper. It's an immovable deadline, and usually an immovable set of rules about what's acceptable in terms of painted models. So that's a motivation. Is it a good motivation? You know, it's pressure. It's definitely pressure, which is one form of motivation. You feel like you've got to get it done. You've got to get it done on time. But friendly competition is probably a slightly softer motivation, but again, maybe not such a hard driver for getting the actual units finished, if you like. I do think things like the Tale of Gamers and stuff like that there's a mechanism that Games Workshop promote quite healthily in you know, the White Dwarf articles, where essentially what you're doing is you are starting from a minimum force and building that force side by side. And in those Tale of Gamers, you're doing this sort of escalation game where you're adding units and all the rest. I think it can help. What I don't like about those to a degree is if you like, the random nature of those, where you don't necessarily get to pick a unit. So maybe some kind of hybrid of those, making your own rules, deciding over a period of, say, 2 or 3 months, whatever you think's appropriate in time. You know, at the end of the first month, we're going to have a 500-point game. At the end of the second month, we get to 1,000 points, and at the end of the third month, we'll get to 1,500 points. And in a quarter, we'll all achieve a 1,500-point army. So I think that's quite a nice mechanism. You can, because you're not in it alone. You're in it with other gamers. You are doing it for an objective, for an end game, where you can play those games with painted models. Like I say, it's not as hard and fast as driving for a tournament, though, where if you don't show up with the minimum paint requirement, you don't get to play. Your mates might be a little bit more forgiving. So I think that's about talking to you and your friends, and kind of almost imposing those concrete rules on it. But certainly an important part in all of this was to try and find that hook, the thing that drove you to... Sorry about that, I've got some technology switching off on me. The thing that drives you to complete the army. That's an important point, really, is what is complete, but we'll come back to that. Okay, first point over. I'm just looking at the chat, and Jim Wilson's just said, what did Rachel say were her top painting tips to get an army done? She did actually answer the question, and she said get somebody else to do it. So there you go. That was Rachel's answer. I can find the exact answer out, but I'm paraphrasing. But in essence, Rachel's comment was, find somebody else to paint your army. Okay, Scott's saying washers can be a great way to paint your army fast. Well, we'll come back to that in a bit. That's cool. Right, okay, next one. Get organised. This is definitely something I'm seeing on the forum. So, if I go over to the forum, can I do this? Yeah, I can do. Let's just have a quick look over at the forum. I'm just having a look at the common sort of themes that's going off with everybody who's posting on the forum. So over here, we've got Chris Sager's Car Caradron Astras. He's basing it on, there's a lot of thought gone into this. He's basing it on, if I remember rightly, Raven Guard. There you go, I'll play them as Raven Guard. But he's worked out his 2,000 point army. He's painted started in March. He aims to finish another small force at the end of WGO Chronicles, because we're running this over a good period to make sure people can get entire forces done. Working to a list is a really good idea, and I'm seeing that as a common theme. By the way, if you've not gone onto the forum yet, check out some of this work. It's great stuff. There's some people posting up some great stuff, and it's really good fun to see. I really like the look of these. Particularly, he was working on the Storm Raven as well, and some of the work on that is absolutely cool. I love the brushwork on the silver. But again, I get slightly distracted there. I'm getting distracted, so we'll come back away from that. But if you go to the Chronicles, what I'm definitely seeing is people working to a list. So we've got, Thomas working on his orders, Pete Higgins on Death Watch, Johnny working on Eldar Space Marines, and whatever else he can fit into the next 5 months. But what you tend to see is, lists. Well, let's just have a look at Joe's here. Joe's working on Gutbusters, and I'm pretty certain, if I remember rightly, he's put together a list of what he's working on. So there you go. He's got the Tyrant, the Butcher, the Firebelly. I think this is a really good idea in terms of getting organised. Having that sense of either the points or the models you want to do, which give you some mechanism to track your progress. I think it's really important when you're setting yourself an objective to get the army painted, that you have some way of measuring your success, should I say. So for me, with the tournament list, I had 1,000 points. In that 1,000 points of Fire Slayers, I had 2 units of 20, you know, 1 unit of 5, and the big magma drop. Basically, the magma drop was held in reserve as a treat for me to do should I get through those 45 infantry. And incidentally, the 5 infantry, which was part of the half guard unit, I actually painted 10 of those, which was 5 more than I needed for the tournament. But there was no way I was going to paint half a unit. That was just, you know, I'd never go back and do the other half of units. You have to be honest with yourself when you're doing these things. And the way I saw it was tackle the 20, tackle the 10, tackle the 20, then on to the magma drop. So I knew when I was doing that first 20 that the next unit wasn't going to be as much work, because it was only half the size. And when I was working on that unit, I could push through that unit of 10 half guard quite quickly. And I knew that when I got back onto the 20 berserkers, I'd already done it once round, so I knew what was involved. And again, the motivation for doing that 20 was very much about, as soon as I get these done, I can start work on my magma drop, which I knew that's where I was going to have fun in terms of the painting. So get organized in terms of knowing your timing plan, get organized in terms of knowing your army list, get organized in terms of knowing the models that you want to work on. So for me, during this period of Chronicles, I absolutely, by the end of this month, need to finish my Fire Slayers, as far as I'm concerned, bar a couple of models which will be there for my enjoyment only. So the reason I want to do that is I want to get them to 2,000 points for use on bat reps. Basically, I think it's important that we can field more than 1,000 points. You know, 1,500 points, okay, but you know, really for Age of Sigmar, I think you need to be hitting the 2,000 point to kind of see the variation in the army, and to have games that have, you know, a more tactical element to them. I do think the 1,000 point games can be a bit of smash and grab when you're at that level. So, really want to get to 2,000 points. And for me, that means another unit of 20 berserkers. I've got another unit of 10. They're not the half guard. They're half guard berserkers actually. So this is the guys with the axes and the flaming pikes. And then I've got about 6 or 7 or 8 characters that I need to get done. So from a point of infantry wise, you know, I'm looking at what, 20, 30, 40 models maximum in terms of infantry. That leaves me with 2 Rune Suns on Magma Drop I want to paint, and then also something that I'm hoping to get done in time for Golden Demon actually, which is the Rune Smiter on Magma Drop, which is going to be a conversion of a Forge World model. So again, that's my end game, knowing I can get to that model, knowing that where's my motivation? My motivation is I need to leave myself time to get that done, and if I'm going to leave myself time to get that done and I'm saving it to the end, I need to push on with the other guy. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get myself organized in my head, when I'm going to have these units done by, when I'm going to be moving on to the Magma Drops, and then finally when I'm moving on to this final piece, hopefully for Golden Demon, should I get it finished. No, I don't expect to win. No, I don't expect to get to finalist badge, but I've never entered Golden Demon before, so my objective this year is to enter Golden Demon. So there you go. So get those points, get those model lists, get those army lists done. I think they're really useful if that helps promote an end game for you. Certainly something that's probably relevant to some of the questions earlier then was, I think this point, essentially paint to the deadline, and underneath this is, I think, a whole bunch of advice, partly, you know, some of the questions we've already encountered on the chat. You know, for me, what I mean by paint to the deadline is essentially be realistic in the time you've got. If you're organized, you've at least spent some time knowing how much time you can put into the paint job. And once you've got an idea of how much time you can put into the paint job, then you have to start making some decisions about what's realistic within that time. So for me, I'm just going to come back to the Fire Slayers because it was relevant. There was levels of detail that I knew I probably wasn't going to get to. I needed the models as a whole to be painted, so that meant all the base colours needed to be going. I wasn't prepared to compromise on that, so you weren't going to get any flesh-coloured armour. You know, armour was going to be painted armour, chains were going to be painted chains, straps and leather straps were going to be painted leather. You know, I wanted all of the base colours in before I go anywhere else. From my point of view, base colours, washes and a highlight was what I considered acceptable, if you like. In other words, 3 coats on each one of those things, and that's just not coincidental for the tournament. It's what I thought was acceptable, that the model would look passable. After that, there were layers of detail that I hoped to achieve. So once all of that work was done, I hoped to go back and do sup marks on the bottom of the feet, for instance, which I did get time to do, actually. They all had little sooty marks on their feet as they'd been wandering across the lava. I wanted to do a second round of highlights on the hair, so it really punched out. It was bright orange. I wanted to do highlights on all of the metallics, which I didn't get done. So I've got to go back and do those again when I do the final round of painting on the army. I knew that I'd also want to paint the little runes on their flesh and the glow effect. And again, I had to sacrifice that. It wasn't going to happen. So, I decided the level I was going to do. I tried to make sure that within a timely manner I got the whole army painted in advance of the tournament, and then any time I'd got spare was about going back and adding more detail. So the little sup marks on the feet and all the rest, and the little OSL glow from the lava on the bases, they were 2 bits of detail I actually found time to go back and do before the tournament. So I was pretty pleased with that. It was a couple of levels up from the minimum I'd set as acceptable, so I was pretty pleased with that. There's a few things in here then about I think diminishing return of paint time, if you know what I mean. Now I have to be clear here. I'm talking about people who are painting armies to a level that essentially they're happy with. Tabletop plus, if you like. For those of you who watch the channel, you will know that Sam essentially did his Beastman, Brayherd army, and they were all individually beautiful. They were amazing. They were absolutely amazing. But that's how Sam paints, and that's what Sam likes to see on his models. So he did exactly what was right for him, and I think that's important. If you're not going to be happy with the result at the end, and I don't mean the kind of unhappiness that we're all unhappy with. Everybody finishes a model and goes, well, it could have had more. But I mean, if you're really compromising too much what you consider acceptable for the model, then I think you have to have a long, hard think about how much you can achieve within the time you've got. Maybe scale down the size of the force. Maybe aim for 500 points over a longer period of time. Just acknowledge the fact that you put more time into each one of the models before you consider it acceptable. So I'm going to park that to one side, because really I'm talking about I'm not talking about people who are painting to a high level like Sam does, these beautiful models, and that's I know Sam, he doesn't like painting any less than that amazing standard, and that's cool. That's what he's about. I'm really talking about this kind of like army painting mentality, if you like, of just recognizing you're not necessarily painting an individual model, you're painting the army as an whole, and as an aesthetic, that's what you're judging it on. When you put them all down on the table, do they look good? Not does each individual model look good when you look at it. And if you're painting to that level, I do think there are a lot. I think over the last few months, I've really picked up some techniques from people like Ulster Nation, and to be honest, people on the community groups, people on the Wargamer Online community, people on the forum, who are all posting their work up, and I'm spending a bit of time and looking at what they do. And if I see something that's a really good effect, I'm like, how did you do that? And what you get back is like, sometimes the answer is surprising. And what I mean by that is, if I was going to paint flesh in the past, I would have done a base coat, a mid coat, a highlight. I would have probably then introduced a wash, and then I would have gone back and probably done more highlights, and maybe even gone back through mid coat again or something like that, And even then, I may have either wet blended. I've used that technique in the past, or I may have used several layers of glazing to create that effect. It's time consuming. I definitely know from doing my Eldar, it's extremely time consuming. Airbrush provided a shortcut for a lot of people. You could shortcut some of that blending because the airbrush, gave you that sort of gradation that people are looking for. But I have to say, when Ulster Nation helped me out with the Gene Stealer cult, the skin tones were awesome. I got the models back on the skin tone. I was like, wow, these are really cool. How the hell did you do that? And what was crazy was he kind of came back, and Elster Nation, I hope you forgive me for not giving away too much of your techniques, but you did post it on the Facebook group, so it was public at some point. You essentially did Bugman's Glow as a base coat. You had a mid one, and I can't quite remember what it was. And what you did with that, so it was Bugman's Glow all over, and then if I was to kind of demonstrate on my arm, he just slapped a blob on the shoulder, and a blob on the muscle, and a blob on that muscle there, and a blob on the back of the hand of the mid-tone, and then went back again with the highlight and did like a smaller blob, a smaller blob, a smaller blob. There was no blending at all. These were just sort of blobs applied, if you like. And then what he did was like this really intriguing mix of, I think it was Seraphim Sepia and then the Caraberg Crimson, I think. Now bear in mind, you know, that was intentional because these were Gene Stealer cults. They got a weird look, but it was just really cleverly applied washes. And I think I had to kind of mimic that technique. And when I was doing it, I was thinking, these are never going to blend in. But you know what? When you kind of combine those washes and then directed that wash around, the amount of gradation that was introduced, the amount of blending that kind of was introduced was incredibly effective. And I look at those skin paint jobs now, and they look like they've got about, you know, at least 2 or 3 more stages than was actually involved. And not only that was just how quick those stages were, that if you go for a decent base, a decent mid, and a bit of a highlight, and then, you know, maybe 2 layers of washes used as a glaze, so don't flood it on and just let it fill the base, you know, really kind of target it into the area. So you're taking a bit more time with it and glazing it in. And then you're letting that first layer dry, and you're going back with a second layer, which you might mix with some Lamia medium or something like that, just so it doesn't tide. And that's the important bit. You don't want that watermark edge. So if you water it down with either a bit of Flow Aid or medium, and then you target the shades and recesses again, and there's you know, and you introduce a slightly different tone. So you go from, say, the sepia tone to, say, a crimson tone. The end result was a lot more than you would expect from the actual stages that were involved. So, you know, I do think ask around on forums, ask around for those army painting techniques that, you know, in 5 stages, something that looks like's had probably 7 or 8 or 9 stages involved. I think that's what's a real eye-opener for me. And I definitely employed that doing my Fire Slayers, particularly when it came to the skin tones. I was really kind of, you know, just trying different things, you know, doing multiple washes. A big one for me was working on the Magmadroth. I did a lot of airbrushing on the Magmadroth, but there was some quite, you know, strangely enough, I was airbrushing with that technique of Elster Nation's flesh tone in mind to start with. So I left, you know, I didn't spend so much time blending the edges, and then I used the washers and multiple layers of washers. And I think with that Magmadroth, I had 4 or 5 wash layers on to blend everything in, and I was really pleased with the result at the end. So in short, paint to the deadline. Find those techniques that are going to be quick, that are fitting with the time you've got, because I do think quick results foster motivation. If you feel you're getting through the army, if you can dispel the belief that it's an endless task, if you can polish a unit of 20 in less than a week, it's an incredible motivation to know that actually if I can do that in a week, that means in 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, I can have 1,500 points done, or I can have 1,000 points done, because those units are just getting done, ticked off, based up, tidied up and put down on the table. And yeah, do that as well. You know, if you paint in an army, don't look at each individual model. Get a unit done, set them up on a table, and just stand back and look at them as if they're a gaming piece. And if you're happy with them at that, then you've painted them to the right level for what you need. Okay, right, before we move on to the next one, let's catch up on the chat, because I haven't caught up on any of the chat at all. So, what's going off? Here we go. So we've got the Fredmeister. Never been able to catch one of these or go for something. These had to go. or something. So glad. Oh, right. So the Fred Meister has caught a live show. Thank you very much, mate. Well, glad you could join us. And sorry it's been so slow to catch up on your chat, because I was ranting on there, wasn't I? Al Kirkham, agree, washers can be your best friend when painting lots of models. Too true, and this is the thing I'm discovering. You know, washers aren't just about creating... I think that's the thing, is if you start to see washers as something more than just that mid-stage shade application, get your base on, get a mid-tone, bang your wash on top, there's your shading done, move on to highlight. No, see it as something that's part of the process throughout the painting layer, and that's something that I certainly have picked up, and I'm far more open to how effective that can use. By the way, I think dry brush is similarly ignored as a technique for getting armies painted. Dry brushing and glazers can produce some incredible results. Okay, so Miggleton says diversity in the army helps a lot. That's why I'm so pumped about my Inquisition army for WGO Chronicles. It's thematic and characterful army that's going to be fun to paint. I am jealous. I did an Inquisition retinue a while ago, and I did buy the Eisenstein model. Did I get that right? Yes, I did. That is his name, isn't it? Eisenstein? No, it's not Eisenstein. Oh, I can't remember his name. Somebody help me out. Eisenstein's the ship, isn't it? I did buy the Inquisitor model that I'm absolutely pumped for, but and I do want to get back to Inquisition, but it's going to be a while. Need to finish the Fire Slayers. For me, WGO Chronicles, I finish Fire Slayers, finish Gene Stealer Cult, and move on to Caradron Overlords. That's my objective in those 5 months. I want to polish all 3 of those armies. How about that? Right, okay, that was Miggleton. I'm just having a look, actually, if I can see your posting. Have you actually put a posting up on the forum yet? I don't think you have yet. Maybe you're working on Facebook, though. Some people are posting up on Facebook, some people are putting up on the forum, so let me know if I've missed something. What have we got? Marlborough 69. Anyone use Tamiya Weatherin Master stuff? No, I haven't, sorry. I do have a pot of it, never used it. Well, I've got the tray of weathering powders and stuff. Is that what you mean? If not, I've misunderstood anyway. All is dust, building the stock collecting box of Necrons. Very cool box, very cool models. Again, you know, I think, you know, that technique of multiple washers and stuff really could bring some variation to those Necron units as well. Certainly good armies to work on, though. Coleman, then kill the magma blob and get another one. Oh yeah, well, we'll talk about that another time. I did melt a few models along the way in the attempt of making that conversion work. I must put that army up as a showcase, by the way, so apologies. I am working on, I think I've got about 4 videos on the go at the moment. So there's the ChillCon edit, which we're going to kind of, you know, release as a little series of stuff. I've got 2 product reviews that are in the can at the moment for some awesome products as well. So we received some amazing stuff from 2 scenery providers, actually, and it's just very, very cool stuff. And I've also got the battle report from last night, where Magic Mike returned to take on Sam, and this was Sam's painfully underpowered Bray herd. Poor army. You know, it's tactically flexible. There's some interesting units in there, but obviously it's terribly underpowered as far as Sam's concerned. Versus Mike's Skaven. I know Sam says he's watching tonight, so all of that was for Sam, knowing that he's watching. He's tuning in tonight. It was an awesome battle. I had a lot of fun. So I was sort of cameraman and editor. I was in the seat of power. And it was just an absolute chuckle. Some of this is not a spoiler, it will be going up on premium in the next couple of days. Some of Mike's dice rolling was just mental, utterly mental, absolutely defying any kind of statistics. And I'm not going to say whether it was good or bad, but you just, you know, if it's worth 1 month's premium membership just to check out Mike's dice rolling. Okay, what else have we got? All is dust. I guess for me, I guess it's just doing better as my army gets bigger. Only issue is, what point is my army done? Well, it's a good question. Johnny Rockstar put a partial list up for the Eldar, got them built, primed and washed. Now the painting begins. Even got a new set of brushes just for the Eldar. That's awesome. Very cool. I love Eldar, but you know, I really need to get back into a bit of 40k. I want to get the Genestealer cult done, and then I do have a couple of Eldar projects on the go. I've got 2 of my aspect Wraith Lords that need completion. So I've got a Swooping Hawk Wraith Lord that needs completion, and as yet unseen on any of the social channels, I have a Warp Spider Wraith Lord as well, which I absolutely love. So they're 2 models that I'll definitely treat myself to painting at some point. I also have a blooming great Forge World tank that Patrick was so generous to get me, which definitely needs painting as well. So hopefully you'll see that soon. I'm just having a quick look at Johnny Rockstar's list there. So Eldar will be like this, and what have we got? First lot of Eldar are built and primed. Oh, let's just check that out. That looks like, is that the starter set? It is, isn't it? It's the starter set. By the way, that Farseer is a very, very cool model. I think it's really nice. Yeah, they're just great models to paint. They're a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoy that. Right, okay, where were we? I'm sure we were somewhere. Right, oh, we were looking through the chat, weren't we? All is dust. Your armies are never done. I have 6,000 points of Ultramarines. Just another 10,000 points to go. I do think one of the things I definitely did for the first few years of getting back into the hobby is I over-focused on one army. I mean, I must have about 12,000 points of Eldar if you count the Phantom Titan that I haven't built yet. Yeah, no, spread the love, build your armies up in parallel, maybe, and you know, maybe that's, but again, that back to sort of try and sorry, I've just Eisenhorn, thank you, Sir Miggleton. I think that helps. I definitely ran out of inspiration on my Eldar eventually, but I will return to them one day. Reaper's joined us. My favorite Reaper 28 has joined us. So there you go. I can pretty much say that's it now. I've achieved all I need to achieve today. Reaper's shown up. Where are we now? C. Mawson, what sorcery is this? I've caught 2 live streams in a week. Well, Mr. C. Mawson, thank you for joining us, and it was cool. You know, it was cool to see you as well. At Chilcon, so that was really awesome. What else have we got now? Al Kirkham, Ulster Nation. Oh, Ulster Nation's obviously helping somebody out, which is cool. Ulster Nation. Our recipe is just put on Wargamer Online Facebook page. Oh, you top man. Thank you very much, Ulster Nation. You're a star. Derpimus Maximus. One thing I find with minis when I try to go all out on them is I end up wishing I'd called it finished earlier, because I end up just making more mistakes while fixing mistakes that weren't that bad. Well, you know, guess what? Know when you're finished is definitely one of the words of advice. I've not finished on my Fire Slayers, as in for me the Urgold runes aren't painted on my models, and I will go back and do them all, because I do think essentially it's a bit of detail that makes the models unique, that's iconic to what the army is all about, and I've decided that's got to be a level I achieve for me to consider those models painted. But certainly knowing when you're finished, knowing when you've done enough, and the difference between essentially, as you've just said there, trying to fix things which actually makes the situation worse, that in hindsight didn't need to be fixed in the first place. I'm trying to think if I've got anything that with the Fire Slayers. Yeah, there's definitely some areas I use sort of a black a dark jade black sort of stone effect on a couple of them, and I'm really not happy with it. And I think if I was to go back, I'd probably just mess the models up. So you know what, for the 4 or 5 or 6 models I did that on, it can stay. You know, it's one of those things. I learned my lesson. Back to that painting to the right level, that, you know, I tried it, that was going to add, I did 1 or 2, and I thought this is going to literally add 2 extra nights to the painting of the army, and I'm not prepared to do it, so I left them at that. Should I go back and paint them off? That's the thing. Yeah, possibly I should go back, but you know what? I'm with Derpamus here. If I go back, I'm only gonna, it's going to be that diminishing return. It's a bunch of time that isn't going to make the army that much better overall. And again, talking in the context of painting the army as if it's one project, one model almost. And I think that's actually a good idea. Is it all depends on how you view the army. If you put the army down on the table and collectively it looks good, then arguably you've done what you need to do for gaming pieces that are required for tabletop gaming. Yeah, you pick up each individual model, you might spot a bunch of errors. You pick up someone, you pick up one dude in the middle of that 20-man troop, and there's a bit of a fuzzy edge or something like that, or a bit of gold caught on his kneecap. Then yeah, it's a shame, but the chances are someone picking up that single model and singling out the kneecap, it's just not going to happen. They're going to look at the unit and go, that's a cool looking unit, as it piles over towards them, and probably gets removed if it's anything like my army. Oh, I'm not going to talk about my last 2 games, but that's another story. So do you think about the painting in the context of the whole rather than the individual, and know when you've done enough to the whole. If you want those showcase pieces, then the first step would be to obviously treat characters and heroes. Give them an extra, say if you're spending overall 30 minutes on each model, and I'm talking from start to finish. So if you're doing a unit of 20, then you're going to get them done in 10 hours of painting, and that might be ambitious. Maybe I'm talking 60 minutes per model, so you know what, then that's fine. 10 hours for a 20-man unit, that was realistic to what I achieved with the Fire Slayers. So that's 30 minutes a model. But for the characters, give them an hour and a half. Give them 3 times as much, and take them at that extra level of detail. So when you pick up your characters, you can have that sense of pride around them. But just recognize the whole, and when you view them as a whole, recognize when you've done enough, and therefore you've finished. David says, so far this has been very helpful. Taking notes and learning. I do need to paint to a list. Oh, great, David. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're helping out. I'm glad you're finding this useful. Do pop along, like I say, to the forum. Get on the Facebook group as well, and keep up with what people are doing on there. Because there's probably one last point to mention, which was be sociable. And by that, I mean use these wonderful social media channels that we have in this day and age. When I was young, the world was black and white. We had one TV to the whole street, and you know what, I'm just making up stories that my mum used to tell me. She did actually only have one TV on the whole street. I find that fascinating. People used to gather around at their house and watch TV, but there you go, how crazy a world we live in now. But in this modern era of social media, of which we are so heavily embraced with at Wargamer Online, use those channels. Use things like forums, painting forums, use those activities that you're going on, use Facebook groups, use YouTube. Do all of these things, get connected. And this was a big one for Sam. When I asked for the team's feedback, Sam said a big driver I asked for everybody's primary motivator, and besides Steve, who gave me 2, even though I said singular most important thing, but we'll not get into that. Me and Steve will work that one out later. Sam said essentially the ability to share the work with others, to get feedback and to see other people's work was a solid motivator for him. So yeah, I mean, obviously to a degree, what prompted this video was the fact that we've just launched our Chronicles. Yeah, I've plugged it a few times, and I'll probably plug it a few more before the day's out. But I do think it helps. I think it helps. It helps on motivation to see other people's work. It helps them to see moving on when you see a unit completed and you think, you know what, I'm only 3 hours off of finishing that unit, so why don't I sit down tonight and do it? Also, some of the chat groups as well. We do the hobby hangouts, and yeah, we do hobby hangouts on YouTube, because we kind of think that's a fun part of the channel. But form your own hobby hangout group. That's the great thing, isn't it? You can easily be connected on the world. If you can find people on these forums who are willing to do Google Talk, or what's the latest one that all the kids are into, if you can get onto those and arrange with those groups and say, right, I'm going to be doing a hobby hangout between 8 and 10 p.m. local time. Anybody online, chat while we're doing it. You sit down and paint. I think audio books, YouTube videos, all of those things are great when you need to focus. By the way, I think that is important. I do find time where I just need to switch all of the chatting to people off because I really need to focus. But there are definitely times when I'm on, I would say, the laborious, no-brain elements of the paint. So if I'm putting base coats down, if I'm putting washes on or something like that, and essentially it's just pick, model up, paint, pick, model up, paint, pick, model up, paint. If you're kind of doing that bit, the bulk painting, it's great to sort of have somebody on the line just chatting away and talking hobby nonsense, talking about your list, talking about the games that are coming up. So if you've formed a group, if you've signed up to Chronicles or something like that, or if you form one of those groups I was talking about where you're all aiming towards a little mini internal tournament, then yeah, do the hobby hangout sessions as well. Schedule those hobby times and then try and get together. Ralph, who is a moderator on the group here, we do hobby hangout quite a lot, and I love it when I'm on with Ralph, because Ralph bangs on these things. Look, you get some of these going, and you get to chat to Ralph and see his eyes really huge. It's great fun. It's great fun. That's amusing in its own right. There's at least 3 hours worth of painting motivation just on that. By the way, love to you, Ralph. I know you've had a hell of a week, so been thinking of you all week, dude. So thanks for joining me tonight, and glad that you're back at home. And just thinking of you, dude. Okay, that's a little shout out to Ralph done. So be sociable, join up, connect, work with other people, feel what you're doing is part of a community effort, and that will definitely help in the motivation. And likewise, that does give you the opportunity to ask for techniques. I tell you what, in one of those painting sessions I was chatting to Ralph, and he put me on to a particular Vallejo product I'd never used before, and I was struggling with something, and he was like, hey, you need to try this. So got onto the old Amazon, other retailers are available, and searched it, ordered it on Prime, got a bottle the next day. You know what, saved me about 6 hours of painting time. And that's the thing, it's just little bits of stuff that you pick up from other people. Okay, right, that's probably enough of that. Do you want to have a look at, is this going to work? Oh, look, this is where I'm at. So, check out the WGO dice. Really pleased with those. They came through just in time for the tournament. We've been using them on the battle reports. And, I absolutely love them. They're great dice. Okay, right. This is my tray of shame, as Sam likes to call it. There's my Shadespire team. Look, half in progress. So that's just, they've been put to one side. What happened with those? I was painting them alongside my tournament list, ran out of time. Here's some of the characters that need to get done. And there you see the 10 berserkers. And as you can see, I think, I've not really talked about this, but the idea of recognizing the difference between bulk and batch and individual techniques, airbrushing. So with these models, what happened was, let's see if I can get a little bit closer there just so it shows up. What's happened to those models? They've had a base coat of flesh, they've had a mid coat of flesh, they've had a highlight on their flesh, and they've had 2 layers of washing. Now, the first 3 airbrush layers, the reason you see flesh tones on all of this is I did my entire 2,400 point army. I just got them all done. There are some techniques that are bulk techniques. Still mind-numbing, still painful, but definitely a bulk technique. What isn't a bulk technique is now individually painting all of the base colors. So getting the cloths, the metallics, the beard, the you know, all the helmet details and all the rest. That's not a bulk technique, because if I was to attempt that over 90 models, that would drive me insane. So that's where I break it down into batches. The maximum batch I would do was say 20 models. Ideally you're working at 10, because it feels like you get that progress done. The more detailed the model, the less you attempt in batch painting. So talking some of the practical stuff now, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I talked about getting organised. I think getting organised is not just about the list as well. I mean, get organised in terms of your painting space. I've got this tray, you know, I mean, for those of you who follow the channel, I've 3D printed these little thimbles, as I've called them. That's because I mount all of my dudes on these little sticks, these little crossbars here, which are from sprues. I stick a little bit of a cocktail stick in the bottom of them, and then I mount them in that. And what that means is I've got full access to the model. I can get to all the underneath areas. They're magnetized, and this is a little bit of magnetic stuff, which means if I want to move these out of the way, look, there we are, I'm dangerously tilting them. Oh, you know, I wondered how far I could take it before they slid off. So I'd say that was about, you know, 70 degrees, something like that. So get organized in that respect. I think one of the great Elstonation tricks, let's just move those off, is he moves from left to right, right to left. And I think that's a great little organization trick. In other words, pick the model up, paint the bit you need to paint, put it to the right. Pick the model up, paint the bit you need to paint, put it to the right. And you just move like that. And as you do that, you get this sense of progress as those models are moving across. And you do that little mental game of, there you are, I'm halfway now, and then I'm over halfway, and you do all of these weird little mental games that keep you motivated. I think they're pretty important. So organization can be more than just a list. It can be about having an organized space. It can be about having an organized system. One of the things I happened upon as well, just one last minute bit of advice, is I stopped considering a single colour as a stage. So in other words, what I didn't do was to say, I'm going to paint all the silvers, or I'm going to paint all the gold. And the reason I did that is, one, nowadays in units you get a lot of variation. So to say I'm going to paint all the gold means you're making decisions. You're making decisions, should that be gold, shouldn't that be gold, should that be silver, those kind of things. What I tended to do was individual items on an individual colour. So literally it was, I'm going to paint all the axe heads, and I moved through and painted the axe head and moved on. And then I made, you know, stick with silver, and okay, now I need to do all the little little runes and stuff on the waistbands and go through. And what that helped with, I tend to find that I wasn't missing anything. If you go, I'm going to do all the silver, and that's the axe head, the keys, the little buckles on the wrists, the little wrist guards, and the belt buckles, what you tend to find is you go through the entire unit and think, oh great, I've done. And then you start picking models up and go, I can't believe it, I missed the belt, or I can't believe it, I missed the one of the axe heads. And it's because you've got these like multiple tasks to do on each model, and that's quite frustrating to realise you've missed stages and have to crack out the paint if you've changed the palette over, you know, if you've gone from metallics to non-metallics, you've cleaned your brush and everything, and you're going back and having to work again. I found that whilst it was a little bit monotonous, sort of only painting one item and moving on, I never forgot a single item then, because the only reason I was picking it up was to paint one item. And when you're only painting one item, it's impossible to miss it, because it's the only thing you're doing. So get really disciplined around that. That really helped me get through those stages. So not seeing the colour as the stage, but seeing the item and the colour as a stage, if you like. So axe head in silver, and move on. Okay, right. Where are we at with the chat? Let's catch up on some of the chat. DJ the Lucky One says, besides, Sean Blake saying, hey Sean, how you doing, man? DJ the Lucky One, I have 2 armies started with about 1,000 points each. I need to get them to 2,000 points. Is this okay for Chronicles? Yes, of course it is, because at the very least you could hide away the first 1,000 points and just say that the second 1,000 points is a force anyway. To be honest, Sam's the man on the rules, but I am sure that's fine. I've got, I'm treating the project I've got to do for Gene Stealer Cults as one of my Chronicle projects. And, you know, Elsa Nation painted a bunch of those models for me, but I've still got to base them. I've still got to get them all mounted up, and I've still got to do the vehicles. So for me, that's one of my projects I'm going to do. So if I'm doing it, why not? I think really Chronicles is about let's get some paint on some models, let's get some army completed, and let's all post that stuff up to each other and say, hey, look what we did. And let's all help each other out. Back to that being sociable bit. Right, okay, but just calling it finished. There's a lot of half-painted stuff kicking around, says Derpimus Maximus. I'll finish it later, trademark. That's a good technique. That's a good technique, because it's a great way of telling yourself a little lie, which actually means, you know what? I think this is finished, but I'm just not prepared to admit it yet. Altboyne says, Return of Rusty Spoons. Indeed, Rusty Spoons. They do get a mention during the battle report. Sleepy Tiger says, will WGO be going to salute this year? Yes, we are. We are going to salute. I'm pretty certain Sam's going. I think Dave is coming down with us. I'm coming down. Jack's coming down. And I'm not 100% certain on Rachel. I believe Rachel's coming with us. She's certainly welcome to. Rachel and Sam, if you're tuning in. Sarah, of course, can look after Khaleesi. Right, okay then. Coleman says, to be honest, I've been using a lot of washers and dry brushing because I thought it was easier for a beginner. I think that's the thing, is they can get a bit of a bad rep, washers and dry brushing. But I've always considered dry brushing is something that you could probably do like a 30. I'd love Sam to do a proper tutorial on dry brushing, because Sam can dry brush. It's a crazy thing to say. He's one of the best dry brushers out there. He can do amazing blended layers with dry brushing. That just blows my mind. And he can do dry brushing that kind of looks like the very best in edge highlighting sometimes. It's crazy stuff what he can do. And I'm thinking particularly around some of the Space Marine models and stuff he's done. It's just, and it's all about making sure you're doing exactly what it says on the packet. In other words, your brush is dry. That's what it's all about. It's all about, you can't have individual bristles leaving lines of paint behind. It's got to be so dry that what you're doing is slowly building up layers effectively of paint dust on the model. But yeah, Sam can do it amazingly, and I always strive every time I go to dry my brush off before some dry brushing. I'm just thinking, would Sam dry the brush a bit more? It's a good thing to keep in mind. Okay, right. Achari says, don't forget to like and subscribe. He's doing his job. Thanks, Achari. You're the man. Johnny Rockstar. Oh, it all jumped up there then. Oh, no. What happened there? Sorry, guys. The chat just freaked out and jumped all the way down, and I've completely lost where I was. Phil was young when Seraphim were called dinosaurs. Oh dear me, what's going off now then? I've definitely... Oh, Johnny Rockstar. I would spread the love, but I want all of the armies. All of them. There you go. Hunter SWC says, hi, how do you keep focused to paint one army where you have been so much temptation on websites, different models, etc.? Yeah. I'd be lying if I was to say that was easy. It's not easy to keep focused on a project, and I think that's why you have to set yourself those short-term objectives: 1,500 points, 1,000 points, 1,500 points. If you do that, that's not asking a lot. I'm not asking you, you're not asking yourself to be focused for an entire year. You're asking yourself to be focused over, say, a 3-month period or something like that. And really, we should be able to do that, shouldn't we? Looking at your wall of shame is always a good idea, isn't it? When for instance, the Idenef Deepkin, I can't tell you how much I love those models, but I'm not going to buy them. I'm really not. One, I'm secretly hoping Sam would do them because he'd do an amazing job painting them. They'd look beautiful anyway. I just think those Deepkin models are amazing. I'd love to get my hands on those sea creatures. Really do some crazy airbrush work on them and stuff like that. Some beautiful stuff. I'd love to. With all the new, I've got that wonderful new masking putty that's just amazing, and I had so much fun with that when I was doing the magma drop. I haven't even started yet on really getting to the bottom of how much of a difference that will make to my airbrushing. So I would love to get my hands on those, but I'm just not going to do it. I've got Gene Stealer Cults, I've got a war full of Eldar, and I've got Caradron Overlords to do, so I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm going to be good. I'm going to allow myself, if I can get my 3 armies done by September, which is my objective. I want 3 armies done, 1 a quarter, that's what I said. I am going to allow myself the freedom to choose an army in the 4th quarter. Now, it might be something I've already got in a box, or it might be one of the new armies. But what I'm doing is I'm not going to allow myself to even start to think about what that army could be until I finish those 3 armies. How about that for mental discipline? Right. So, Hunter, I hope that answer helped. Dunny Woods probably takes me about 2 hours per model, but they still look naff. I doubt that, Dunny. And, 2 hours per model, it's not bad, is it, really? The question is how much hobby time you get, really. And, like I say, I think this is where some of the techniques I picked up from Ulster Nation really help for me. I think I lie to myself a little bit about how long the models take, because I think that's useful. If you actually tell yourself it's less, then it doesn't feel too bad when you sit down to do the next unit. But, overall, like I say, if you get into that idea of bulk and batch and try and move faster and then use some of those cool wash techniques, and I think Ulster Nation's put the recipe up on the Facebook group, so check it out. And use that not just for flesh, but use it for some of the, armor colours and stuff like that. Well, I'll tell you what was a good example was the shields with mine. I wanted variation on the shields, and I achieved that by using glazes. So they essentially all got a silver base coat with this kind of mottled effect. I actually used the silver pens to create a hammered effect, a dimpled hammered effect. And then I use different coloured glazes. So I just use blues, reds, oranges, greens, and just glaze that over the silver. And then the whole unit's quite... they look quite dynamic, lots of different colours amongst the unit, which is what I wanted. But in terms of the painting, they were all done simultaneously, and they were all exactly the same amount of stages, because I got to the same point and then just varied the glaze colour. So do look for those shortcuts. Right, okay, I'm doing 3 armies. 1 is commission. This is from Reaper, so stop me being bored of 1. Oh my god. 3 at once. I'm not sure I can do that. I actually think it helps me if I do, not just overload my desk. If I'm not working on something, I put it away, which is really dangerous. I've got this half-finished projects box, so stuff goes away. It is dangerous to do that, because once it's out of sight, it's out of mind. But it does help motivated that I know what's on this tray down here is the last I need to do in terms of the infantry. So every time I finish one of those models, I am that step closer. Coleman says, Phil goes, when I was a lad, gather around children. There you go. I'm citing my age again. I never kept dinosaurs as pets. Nope. Seymour, so when I was a young, computer games came on an audio cassette. I've still got some. I have a ZX Spectrum 48 up in the loft, and I've still got the audio cassettes that accompany it. I also have the Spectrum 128, which had the 3-inch floppy disk drives, not 3.5, 3-inch floppy disk drives. A format that lasted exactly 1 machine in about 6 months. There you go. Where are we at now? Everybody giving love to Ralph, as they should do. That's awesome. Where have we got now? Coleman says, when my dad got a first electronic watch I saw I was 8. That's brilliant. Are those Shadespire Fire Slayers in the corner? Yes, they are, Funbug One. Yes, and I do want to do Shadespire. The studio has had some more work to it. The studio here has had some more work to it. So we're going to try and do some Shadespire games, I think. I'm going to try and get into it. I'm hesitant to say this, but I've actually enjoyed the deck building element to it. So don't tell Sam. I hope Sam's tuned out by now, because if he hears that I've got into deck building, I will never hear the end of it. But I have been playing around building the deck for my Fire Slayer, so there you go. Right, what else have we got? Al Kirkman, when I was a young lad, we had no TV, we had to listen to the radio and talk to each other and actually read books and newspapers. Okay, I've started a whole bunch of when I was a lad, but there you go. A few things then. Not working harder, but working smarter from Amit there. To sum the subject up, I could never do batch painting. Tried once and tested it. Not bothered about models in a unit looking different from each other. You know, they would be anyway. Yeah, well, a good point, Coleman. Come at a good point. But if you, you know, I do think batch painting can be an effective tool to get, you know, those models done quicker. But it's not for everybody. It requires a kind of switch your brain off and automate the process a little bit. But as I said, it's not for everyone. I mean, Sam batch paint, but the reality is he batch paint to like Golden Demon level on every single model. So it wasn't really batch painting. It was just like amazingly painting everything in a long list. Sigmar, some wall of shame. Love the honesty. Most say I have a drawer of shame, but we all know the truth. It's a wall. Mine is. Right, okay. Comparing shames now. Cupboards of shames, floors of shames. There's a boot of shame that was mentioned by Sam. One of the guys carries all his shame around in his car boot. Owen Jackson. Back into the hobby after a prolonged hiatus. Totally back in love with Warhammer. Started off with Malign Portents comp and took so long to get 16 Dryads and a Branch Witch and a Draika done. I feel your pain. I know that Patrick's just started on his... for those of you, Owen, Patrick Metzer, who came along to the tournament, he started on Sylvaneth. And yeah, I just remember the pain of those Dryads. They're impossible to transport. Definitely go with a magnetized tray route. Definitely. But yeah, they're great fun to paint. I did 3,000 points of Sylvaneth in 3 weeks. And it almost broke me. It almost broke Sam as well, because it really he was, I can't remember what he was painting at the time, but he'd be like, right, I got that done. I got one model done. I was like, yeah, that's 30 Dryads done tonight, and it was just killing him. But they're not the best painted. If you see my Sylvaneth, there is I think I've actually got a showcase up for my Sylvaneth. The only one I spent any time on was the Lariel, and that's a model that truly deserves time. But Draika as well, I've not got that, and I saw the model recently and it's amazing. So good luck with that, Owen. Derpimus Maximus talking about the state of his floor of shame, shadow swords, demolishers, hellhounds, chimeras, baneblades. Ah, dear me, baneblade. The speed is coming. This is Owen. Speed is coming, and finding short-term goals is an amazing motivational tool. Small batches of 4 to 5 models seems to be not too robotic and production liney. Good, cool. That's it. Find your level. Maybe that should have been one of my one of my little comments there. C. Mawson's talking about spectrums. That's me drifting off there. Owen's aiming for 2,000 points of Sylvaneth Wanderers, and then on to Blight Kings, and then Ideneth. Ah, Blight Kings, man, what an army. We came up against those in the tournament. They are just crazy. They're great fun. Reaper's talking about his Wall of Shame, his entire Bloodraven army, and all of his half-painted minis from years ago. I got the magnetized tray, got bored of snapping limbs off. There you go, Owen. Well done, mate. Listen, we're past 10 o'clock. That's an hour show. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sorry I wasn't around last week. I've still literally, my voice is going a little bit. I'm going to do one last quick look at the forum. So just so you know, been talking a little bit about the Chronicles. Here it is. There's a link on this video actually if you want to check it out. Depimus Maximus has just posted up some homebrew Space Marines. You know what? Seeing as though he posted up while the chat's going, and he is over there on that chat as well. Okay, so I'll have a go at this just to see how badly I failed to hit my targets. Optimism, that's the key. Going to base the force around Dark Imperium minis and hopefully expand it to 1,000 mark. And whatever extra stuff appeals, possibly Primaris, possibly Marinelets. I'll probably stick with just infantry, maybe a Dread. There you go, look, he's committed. Derpimus Maximus is committed to his homebrew Space Marines. That's awesome. We've got Thomas talking about his Hordo Hereticus. Oh, here we are. Yeah, sorry, Thomas. So there you go. St. Celestine. Oh, no, those assassins. I'm just moving on. He's just going to go the assassin route. Let's catch up with some of those people who were early into it. We've got Patrick Sylvaneth, as I mentioned. Manny's Caradrons. So yeah, people are putting stuff up there, and you know, one of the things that Sam mentioned is we actually expanded the website recently, so we host images. So you don't have to post them separately. You don't have to link them anywhere else. You can upload them directly into the forum, and they will be around for perpetuity. They'll be there for you to relish for the years to come, long after Facebook's been closed down for selling all of our data off to random people in Coventry or something like that. Cambridge? Coventry. Whichever. Alright folks, listen, that's it for me. I'm rambling on and talking nonsense, so that's definitely time to call it a night. Just a couple of bits. Okay, battle report. There's a battle report going up on Premium. As I mentioned, there's a few shows to go up this week. Some product reviews that are going up before the end of the week. Sam is going to be doing a Saturday show. I'm pretty certain he's going to be doing a Saturday show. I'm absolutely certain he's going to be doing a Saturday show. He's been doing some cool shows lately. Really enjoyed his lore video he did. So if you haven't checked that out, Sam's done he's exploring doing sort of Warhammer lore and those kind of things. So check out that video. It's a cool one. I put it on while myself and Jack were working on his beast claws, which by the way, Jack's been nailing his beast claws. One last quick shout out for Jack's beast claws. Look, he's really been getting on with those, and he's on early stages, but he's really getting on with them. So top man. So expect to see those bad boys smashing across the table in some battle reports. We've done a couple of test games so you could get familiar with the rules before we do, and we're doing the test games while he's still painting them, so as soon as the army's painted we can get on to some battle reports. They are mental. They are mental at the hands of someone like Jack, who only knows one thing, which is charge, and he also only knows one dice result, which is sixes. They're just mental. Incredible. We've yet to have a game that's realistically gone past turn 2 with him, because he just smashes through everything. I'd love for him to give Sam a game actually with his beastmen. That'd be so funny. Okay, right, I think what else was I saying? Okay, so Bat Report up on Premium. There's a few videos going up this week. Studio wise, there's going to be a bunch of work to the main studio going off over this month, so we'll keep you posted on Facebook. That's all going to be good news. We're going to be having a very similar setup to what we've got here. For those of you that are premium members out there, check out the back rep that goes up in a couple of days. I think we've really polished off the sort of multicam battle report now. We're in a really good place. Worked with Sam on the last one on how we represent scores and progress in the game as well. I might actually put something up on the Facebook group, just a quick screenshot, a sneak preview of the new scorecard that runs simultaneously as the game's going and stuff like that. Really pleased with the layout. And we're going to be moving that tech into the main studio, so expect to see more. Magic Mike's back and involved in the channel as well, so expect to see more from Magic Mike. He's not on social media at the moment, or well, it's not that he's not on social media, he's got limited connectivity to the internet at the moment. So if you're all like hashtagging Magic Mike and not getting a reply from him, don't be offended. He's working on the background for us on some stuff at the moment, but you'll expect to see him online sooner rather than later, so he'll soon be joining in on the social chat as well, and I'm sure you will probably see something on the Chronicles eventually from him as well. So welcome back to Magic Mike, and good night to all of you. Thank you very much for joining in. That's absolutely awesome to see you all along tonight. I've really enjoyed the chat. It's glad to be back, and I suppose I will see you next week, folks. See you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.